Hi to everyone and welcome to our university supervisors meeting. I think many of you know me. I'm Diane Brennan, Assistant Vice President for Human Resources. So I wanted to just start off with a little reflection. I don't know about you, but I think it feels like everyone's, not everyone here, but the world is angry, and there are many things happening all over, whether it's, we're as the university, a microcosm of what's happening in the world, and then just everything that's happening in the world. And so what I thought I'd just start with is find the good. Instead of the anger, if we could kind of find the good. And I wanted to call out yesterday's Loque Pasa and the announcement about 8 employees and 3 teams that are being honored for outstanding contributions and for the 2023 Awards for Excellence that are presented by the Staff Council and the President's Cabinet. There were quite a few folks who applied for that, and those people also get recognized as finalists, but our folks who are receiving the awards and anyone who was nominated are going to be recognized next Thursday, I believe it is, the 25th. So I think something, if you haven't read that article yet, it's pretty inspirational and worth reading, and you'll see some of our fellow colleagues. I was looking to see if any of our award winners are on today, because many of them are people that attend this meeting as well. But it just is a reminder of there is a lot of good. People are doing good work. And so it's easy to find what's not working, but it's worth looking for what is and really trying to amplify that as well. Today's session, we have our colleague Laqwanda Roberts-Buckley with us, and she is our mental health and wellness specialist from Life and Work Connections. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Laqwanda. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Laqwanda Roberts-Buckley. As indicated, I'm the mental health and wellness specialist here at the U of A and Life Work Connections. But I've been in the field of mental health for 17 years. I have run the entire gambit when it comes to mental health. I have been an outpatient therapist, been in private practice, worked for psychiatric hospitals, worked in emergency mental health crisis. But my passion is on the advocacy side. I'm the former director of outreach for the National Office of Mental Health America. I've served on board of directors for NAMI Northern Virginia, for board of directors of a peer nonprofit in Virginia, and I'm currently on the board of directors of a nonprofit here in Phoenix, Arizona. I also run my own organization with 13 amazing women. I am a certified life coach, a retired therapist. What else do I do? A Reiki master and a sound practitioner. But I also manage bipolar 1 disorder and PTSD and generalized anxiety disorder. And if you've ever been in a presentation with me, you know that I always say those things, specifically because when it comes to things like self-care, it can be very, very commercialized when we speak about it, right? And so for me, when I'm talking about self-care, I'm talking about the things that have allowed me to have the career that I have and do the things that I enjoy doing. And so when you're in a workshop with me, you're not going to get the stereotypical things that you hear when it comes to self-care or stress management, because we're going to do a little work and we're going to break a couple of things down, okay? So just so you know, we're getting ready to go right into it. So utilizing self-care as a supervisor. So we're going to talk about just some general things that we all know, right? Here we go. So self-care, how is it beneficial? So these are things that we've all known, we've all heard before, right? Improves energy, reduces anxiety, increases happiness, minimizes frustration, reduces depression, reduces stress. Those are all common things that we have heard and that we know about the benefits of self-care. Now, if you have not noticed over the past 3 to 4 years, something major has happened in society, right? Across the world. The pandemic, which for university professionals has increased our levels of depression and anxiety by 50%. 50%, which means those stressors that you had before have been amplified and are echoing. So we're seeing right here in front of us, these are some of the benefits that we all know about self-care. How many of you honestly feel like you have time for self-care? In the chat? Nope, no, not me, none, not enough, rare, depends, sometimes, nada. Woo! So some of the things we have to think about, right, is as a supervisor, you are very unique in your role. And the barriers that you face to self-care are very, very unique, which means there are certain things that could possibly get in your way as you care for yourself in the role that you have. So let's look at a couple of them. Number one, often charged with doing more with less. If there's a cut, or there's not more money coming in, you are the individual who's going to be responsible for taking whatever it goes that is set to the finish line, whether you have the adequate resources or not. That is a lot of weight to carry. Another thing, you're often the go-to person in times of confusion, concern, or crisis. Which means when something happens, you're the person that people see the green light on. You're the person that other people are identifying as this is the person I have to go to. The third, a manager and a supervisor is usually the middle person between progress within your department or division and the systematic policies and procedures. What that sort of kind of means, sometimes you get blamed to be the fall guy for things that you have absolutely nothing to do with, which means there are higher things and higher policies that have been issued that prevent you from making certain decisions. And now you have to explain to your team how that is going to impact you, and you get all of the heat. You get all the pushback from that. And so again, that's adding to your plate of things that's already there for you as a supervisor day to day. Other potential barriers for self-care for you guys, you're pulled in multiple directions. If you have a large team, your brain has to be on a point on everybody on your team. Keep in mind who's doing this, who's doing that, who's responsible for this. Even when you delegate, you still need to know what direction it's going. And this does not even include the things that you have to do for yourself. And the last thing, you serve as the point person for your team members' expressions of frustration or venting. But that is your role. And the reason why I wanted to point this out to you is that there are a lot of things coming your way besides those things that are listed in your job description. Being a listening ear when certain things happen isn't specifically listed in your job description. But depending on what happens that day at work, that can easily become 40, 50, 60% of your day, because supporting your team and putting out those fires keeps your team moving forward, but it also puts a weight on you. And we have to acknowledge that, right? These are some things that I want all of you to keep in mind when it comes to self-care. And then we're going to start digging in and doing some work here. General things. Self-care is saying no. You see there's a period there, no comma, no question mark, no, none of that. A period. Self-care is establishing and enforcing boundaries. Self-care is limiting and redefining your roles. Self-care is making time for yourself. But we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. And self-care is also sometimes focusing on things that may feel uncomfortable, like therapy. Because I know if you right now, if we all went and Googled managers and mental health, it's going to come up. Almost every article is going to be about your team and not you. I'm telling you that right now. I know. I looked. And so you have to also think about yourself. And how do we get to this point right here to where you are thinking about yourself? We're going to start using this a shield as your self-care plan of action. And as you see, we got an acronym there. And if you've ever been with me before, you know I love acronyms. So we're going to establish a shield for ourselves, right? And that shield is going to include separating, holding space, identifying, energy, language, and do nothing. And if you're wondering what does all this mean, we are about to break it down for you. So S, separate from stressors. Separating yourself from stressors can be challenging as a supervisor due to the roles that you have. Remember, you're that point person. So when something happens, people are coming to you. Remember, you're delegating. So you have to know where things are moving, within your division or your department. But there are going to have to be times where you are going to have to separate yourself from those stressors, because learning how to implement healthy boundaries is key to caring for yourself. I'm going to tell you this right now. Your department is going to be as healthy as you are. Your team is going to be as healthy as you are. Because if you don't think you feel it when your boss has a bad day, I don't know what rock you're living under. But let's look at a simple tool such as protecting the mainland that can provide a guide in doing so and helping you separate from your stressors. So if you go to our website and the mental health landing page, we redid this for you. And on here, you're going to see a couple of resources, but right here is where I want you to be. Want to keep stress off your mainland. So this is a tool that I developed to do something called protecting your mainland. So consider the mainland as a part of your life that you want to safeguard. The smaller islands, as we see, are the parts of life that are major stressors for you. How can you reduce the amount of stressors that travel from here to the mainland? And it breaks it down for you. Think about life, not just work, but life. What's on your mainland? What do you want to protect? Is it your lunch hour? Is it your time before you start work? Is it that hour when you come home? Whatever this is, identify that. What's on the island? What are the things in your life that can cause this either to pause or to be interrupted, right? So what stressors do you want to keep away from your mainland? Identify those here. And then we want you to list ways to keep those stressors away. Is it telling people, hey, when 1 o'clock comes, that's my lunch hour, please don't come through my door. In a nicer way, of course. But, hey, this is the space that I'm taking for myself. I appreciate not having those interruptions, okay? So those are the things that we want to do when we're thinking about separating ourselves from stressors. This takes all of 4 or 5 minutes to do. I kept it very simple so that we can know, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3. We want to create out space where you can safeguard for yourself. And remember, I just said we're going to create space. So the H in SHIELD, we're going to start holding space for yourself. As supervisors or managers, you are probably looked upon to assist in problem solving, putting out fires, and serving as a point of contact for those who need support. And as a supervisor, that can happen at any time during your day. Anytime during your day. But learning to hold space for yourself allows your frustrations, your limitations, and your concerns to be acknowledged. But this is the key. You have to know that you need that space for yourself. Sometimes we confuse being busy all the time with being better. And sometimes it's about, I need to have a space for myself, because as a supervisor and manager, you're automatically holding space for other people. And so if you're going to hold space for other people, what are you going to give them if you haven't given yourself anything, right? And the last, burning yourself out does not make you a good leader. I don't, there's no way that I could tell you any other way. When I spoke at a conference last year, and one of the things I said, burnout is not a badge of honor to show your commitment to your community. If you want to pour into your community for a long period of time, you got to pour into yourself first. You have to. You have to become a priority for you. The I in SHIELD, identifying supports, finding your collaborative colleagues who are trusted, that you can soundboard with. Psychological safety is very important here. You need to be comfortable in communicating with people, hey, this is what is going on. Your upline could serve as a pressure relief for you. Joe is mine, because when I go, I'm like a little teapot, and she helps simmers me down. And she's like, okay, Laqwanda, let's talk about this and let's think this through. And sometimes you need that. So think about when your kettle starts boiling, who can you go to release? Now, this is the part that people don't want to like to hear, but it is a reality. When your upline is your major stressor, because your stressor can be people, that's when we have to start developing creative connections outside of your community. Because I'm not going to sit here and invalidate anyone's experience and say that we all have this shared wonderful experience every single day at the U of A. I will not invalidate anyone's experience in any way. So that's when we have to start thinking about those creative things. Do we need a safer space to have that pressure relief for ourselves? What does that look like? There's ComSci, there's colleagues outside of the university, finding that space that's key for you. And then finding people that you can genuinely laugh with. I was in the office yesterday, and I think I was choking down. It was so funny just to be around my colleagues, knowing that I had major things that needed to go. And sometimes you need a laugh, but sometimes you also need a cry. There's a balance. And so as a manager and a supervisor, you are often viewed upon to be the person that holds it all together. I am telling you that acknowledging your humanity both benefits yourself and the people around you. And it relieves that pressure of, I don't have to be perfect in order to support my team. And I don't have to be perfect to take care of myself as well. E, energy management. Please take note of how certain things pull on you throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, and throughout the year. If you never heard my air mattress analogy, welcome. We use these giant pumps to fill air mattresses. We plug them into the wall, right? We click the button and they make all this noise and they fill them up and they get rock hard. And then we go to sleep. And if there is a pin, a straight pin nearby and pokes a tiny hole in it, when you wake up in the morning, you'll be on the floor. Your energy is the same way. You have to think about those things that may not seem huge, but they're poking those tiny holes in your mattress, in your energy, and they're pulling from you, and you're pulling from you. And the thing I want you to hear and hear most, I'm not telling you to see about your self-care so that you can give to other people. Your priority should always be you. Your priority has to be you. I don't want anyone to say, Laqwanda, I implemented that. Now I can do 10 hours of work in 8 hours. No, please don't. We're not trying to do that here. Okay? So you want to think about those things, even if it's tiny. Hey, this is draining me. This is pulling from me. Because we don't want you to be deflated at the end of the day. And I don't want you to be deflated at the end of the week or deflated at certain points in the year, because we also have to be mindful and prepare for your busy seasons. Everyone has busy season. The week before is not the time to start preparation. If you're there, you're there. But you really want to think about a month or two. Hey, this is the time that I get triggered a lot. My energy is plummeted, or I have to put out a lot of energy. Sometimes it's not even about the energy that you lose, but the energy you have to put out. And see, that's where we get tricked up a little bit. We think because we are able to operate in heightened energy, then we're taking care of ourselves. No, you're on your way to that ledge to crash, because your body can only take you doing that so much. That adrenaline only stays high for so long. And so you have to think on both sides of that coin, that there's the energy that's drained, and then there's the energy that's going and going and going, and then it has to stop sometime. So think about a month ahead. Okay, I know this is going to be go for me. These are the things I'm going to start putting in my path to set myself up so that self-care wise, I'm balanced. Now, if you noticed, we haven't mentioned a bubble bath or massage yet, because self-care is deeper than those external activities. Now, yes, you can put those external activities here when you're managing your energy, but you need to know that you're managing your energy. Another thing, you have to start using language, kind language, gentle language as a shield for yourself. Language is a simple way to shield yourself when unexpected things might arise throughout your day. Examples. Hey, can we pause this conversation for a moment? Creating that barrier, putting that shield up. Let's circle back to this when I can give more attention to it. Creating a barrier, putting that shield up. Let's pick this up another time. So you have to think about ways that you can put that shield up, and language is a great way. Now, language can also be tricky because your tone can determine how it's received. So when you're using language as a shield for yourself to give yourself a buffer on those moments where you need that buffer, remember your tone. And remember, language isn't just verbal, it's nonverbal as well. So knowing when to pause and give yourself a moment. And the D in shield, doing nothing. As a supervisor, I'm pretty sure all of you probably have trouble doing this, but this is key. Knowing when you are not the better person to complete a specific task. If someone is learning how to do something and you want it done immediately, but you just no, you let someone go through those growing pains and you sit back and rest, doing nothing. allowing and trusting individuals to put out fires that they're capable of managing. Sometimes your wellness is based upon you knowing that they got this and you leaving it alone and releasing that for them and for yourself. Remember that being a supervisor does not mean you have all the answers all the time. Sometimes you don't know, and you need to say you don't know and release that pressure off yourself of having to try to figure it out. And like we just said, allowing yourself to pause before you respond. I get it. You're a supervisor, you're a manager, you're the person who puts out the fires, but I've never seen a fireman work by themselves. Sometimes you're not the person meant to hold the hose. Sometimes you're the person meant to stand on the sideline and let someone else carry it so that you can be like, yeah, they're doing a good job. And so that you can exhale. But if every single time something happens, you're the first person at the door, you're setting yourself up. You're setting yourself up because you have to release. And doing nothing is about releasing so that you can focus on you. So let's look at some things as we move away from your shield. What makes your shield less effective? Increasing your workload. Again, we're not doing this to put 12 hours in an 8-hour day. We're not doing that. That's toxic. I'm telling you, that's toxic. That's not healthy at all. Overstretching commitments. Remember, you're going to this person to put out a fire, this person to put out a fire, and you're not assessing where you can do nothing. Assessing where you do nothing is a powerful tool for your wellness as a supervisor. And like I said, if your primary focus is improving function at work when it comes to self-care, yeah, it's not going to be it's not going to be effective. Your primary focus has to be you. Your primary focus has to be you. So what maintains your shield? Being realistic about the situation, environment, and people. What does that mean? Every situation you're not going to be able to change. We can self-care up and down when it comes to certain things, and certain factors in life are not going to shift. As I told you earlier, I have bipolar 1 disorder. I self-care to stay balanced for a living. Ain't no amount of self-care I want to do going to take that diagnosis away. That's a reality, right? And so we can't set ourselves up with these absolutes. I'm going to do X, so that means Y is going to happen. Y might not happen. Sometimes what you're doing is to get you from point A and point B because that's what you got for the day. And there's still validity and value in that. Because sometimes we want to go from A to Z and not value the journey from A to B. Going to A to B is just as bad. So if you got to go from A to B, then B to C to D to get to Z, so be it. We'll get you there. Some people aren't going to change. I was talking to my daddy. My daddy is a Southern gentleman in his 70s, and my daddy tells me all the time, he's hosting the third person. I don't know why. He said, girl, your daddy told you some people not going to change. And you have to learn how to navigate that space around. So we have to release certain things of it is our mission to get people to hear certain things, right? Because you may not be the person's voice that they're going to hear. And so those are things that we sometimes have to say, okay, I may not be speaking that person's language. And so let me navigate this space that promotes wellness for both of us. And remember, self-care is work. You remember I did not tell y'all where to go get a massage or a spa day. We went through some key factors when it comes to wellness. But this is what I want you to tell you. This work is designed to release, recharge, and revitalize. Now, that as I said, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen for the entire day. Sometimes it's between this meeting and your next meeting. Sometimes it's that preparation between this project and the next project that is revitalizing you for. And it's bringing you to a point of calmness. But if your shield, the things that we just got through talking about, seems too heavy, then we have to reevaluate some things, right? Because maybe what you're doing isn't adequate and you might need something heavier. Or you might need someone else to carry that shield for you. And as a supervisor for someone, y'all are probably carrying shields for other people all the time. And you may have to put yourself in a position where you have someone else to support you.
Thank you, Laqwanda. Do we have questions? I think I saw earlier someone said it's hard to say no. And some of what you shared there in ideas as well with how do you pause? I wonder, is there any other?
So the thing about saying no, right? No has been used as something negative, right? I'm stopping you from doing something. I'm stopping something from happening. But if you, again, reimagine how you're using no, is I'm using this word to give us space. I'm using this word to, as a shield for myself and protect a boundary for me, or to indicate and identify a boundary. So when you think about no, it's usually because it's grounded in that negative connotation of what we think about no. And so we have to shift that to understanding that no means can be a positive thing if we're utilizing it the right way.
Yeah.
Because, if you see a child getting ready to put a fork in an outlet and you say no, that's not anything positive. That's something life-saving. And so you have to think about it from that perspective. What perspective am I thinking about this? And when it comes to pausing, people tend to think of pausing in long terms. Like, pausing is a week vacation. Pausing is, and those are beautiful things, but sometimes we don't have that. I always tell the story. I was a emergency mental health therapist. We didn't have lunch. So I was on call. When I got calls, I had to go. I had to be in front of law enforcement, be in the community, wherever, and then be in front of judges and deal with lawyers. I had to do all of that in the span of my shift. And so my pause for me was, if I came off a really heavy call, I had a black backpack with me. And in there, I had cinnamon gum, Dr. Pepper, hot Cheetos, and adult coloring books. And everyone knew I was going to take 15 minutes sitting somewhere, coloring, drinking a Dr. Pepper. Sometimes you have to force that pause when there isn't, because you needed that. Yeah. And so you have to look at your schedule. I tell them, look at your Outlook. Don't make it complicated. Think about your to-do list. Put yourself on your to-do list at least once a week. That to-do list that you're trying to maintain and that you're trying to keep afloat. But if something happens to you, it's going to go to pots anyway. You need to be on that to-do list. It's 40 hours in your work week. Divide that by 2, that's 80 30-minute increments. You deserve one of those. I don't care how you break it down. If it's 10 minutes, if it's 5 minutes, if it's grabbing tea, if it's getting coffee, whatever it is, integrate yourself on your Outlook calendar and put that boundary about it. Your pause may be during your lunch. When somebody walks into your door, into your cubicle, or to your desk, you're like, I'm at lunch. And someone knows not to come in, because whatever it is, unless it is a crisis, I promise you it can wait 30 minutes. And so we have to think about that, because when you honor other people's boundaries, they're going to honor yours as well.
Yeah. Well, and they start to learn from you as well. Wesley has an observation here and a question. He says, I think it's critical to take time for yourself, but the reality is that sometimes when you do that, there are some employees that start talking about how it must be nice to be a supervisor and be able to take time to do X, Y, or Z, or not have to do X, Y, or Z. how do you address this? Because it can spread and become pretty toxic quickly when you've got people that like to stir the pot.
Pots are going to get stirred regardless if you say something or you don't. You need to understand that realization, okay? Don't try to say, okay, I'm going to come up with this formula and the pot is not going to be stirred. That's not realistic. That's not society that we live in. The one thing I would say is that you need to be vocalizing to your team like, hey, you said you were going to lunch at 12. Why are you still here? Go to lunch at 12. So you remind your team that they can go take those breaks too. That is a part of their environment. So wellness within your department, when it's a top level thing, communicate that to the people. Communicate that if somebody see me drinking tea, do you want a cup too? You have to communicate that wellness is available to them too, because I'm telling you, they are feeling the pressure of, if they're saying that to you because they're feeling, if I get up, then I'm going to be penalized for it. I'm telling you, I've done these workshops, so that is the thought that they have. That if I don't bear down and push myself, then I'm not going to achieve whatever goal that I have. But as leadership, you have to not only show, but communicate that. Hey, make sure y'all stepping away. Jill tell us all the time, if y'all need to step away, step away. She's mindful of what goes on in the country. Does anybody need support? Anybody need a soundboard? Put those things. People can see us do stuff, but say it also.
We have another question. Do we have any thoughts on when everyone is in crisis, all shields are up and nothing's getting done? I think I know the answer already, but hearing it from outside source is helpful.
Everybody's in crisis.
Yeah.
There's a such thing called community self-care. The first thing to do is not to pretend like the entire system isn't in crisis. You have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that and validate those individuals' experiences, right? Because when people are in crisis, they're in survival mode. Whatever thing that you're thinking about, it's not top priority for them, for someone who's in survival mode. They're trying to get through 8 to 5 and do it even though they're feeling miserable, okay? So the thing is, acknowledge that you're in crisis mode as a team, and then you really need to sit down together. You never want to isolate anyone in this, because this has to be a community self-care effort. What are those hardline things that have to get done, that are prioritized, that are high priority, and make it a team effort if you can to get as much as that's done? What is something that we can shift? What do we have control over that we can shift to whoever who's willing to help and support? And then the last one, what are some things that we can put off? Yeah.
Or what are we doing that maybe doesn't need to be done?
And that's a realistic thing. We have those conversations all the time. Hey, is this within our scope? Is this within our scope? And so, you have to acknowledge the crisis. You can't have people running around and you're not acknowledging that everyone is in crisis. You have to acknowledge that and remind people that you see their humanity and that you're seeing that it's difficult for them. And then we start bringing that down to, okay, these are our key things. Because when people are in crisis, I promise you, they're not paying attention to all the stuff that has to get done. And so as supervisor, you have to say, okay, this is our bones. This is the things that we have to do. These are the things that we have wiggle room on. And like you said, Diane, these are the things that we don't even need to be touching.
Yeah. Sometimes I think, I know it's hard. We all go through this. I say, I do as well. And, it's important to constantly look at what are we doing and what can we let go of? I think this institution, people have been here in many cases a long time, and maybe even in the same department, and they carry things with them, or things that have been part of their role don't seem to go away, even though that's not their role anymore. So it is important to look at and, reach out if you need help in that as well.
Most definitely. You have to know, when we talk about boundaries, we're not just talking about individual boundaries, it's departmental boundaries as well. Knowing that you're operating within your scope, and that's going to pull some of the pressure off of you, which pulls the pressure off of your team.
Yeah. And there's always more work to be done than we can get done, I think.
The work isn't going to stop. And that's the thing. You have to realize the type of system that you're working in. The system, when you go home, is still going. This is a 24-hour, 365 system. So if you're thinking, I have to get things done by every point, this system doesn't stop. This is one of the systems that keeps going. It does not shut down. It keeps going. We get those 2 weeks, but there's still people working. There's still people working. And so this system is ongoing. And so you have to think about that. Okay, this is an ongoing system. What are those crucial things that are core to our responsibilities? And then everything else, you need to see whether or not you're supposed to be doing it at all.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I wonder, for those who it might be helpful for, sometimes it's good to actually say, what am I taking away, or what will I do differently? I just to tell you a little bit about something from me. I have never been a person who does meditation, but a few weeks ago, I just knew I needed to do something different. And I took a meditation class, and I'm practicing. I don't always get it. We're busy people. It takes up it jumps like it's taken over my exercise time. Even when I get up early, but it is trying to figure out what's going to work for you. And it makes a difference when we start to take care of ourselves. So I appreciate that, Laqwanda, and I love SHIELD. I have always said, we need to put our shields up sometimes, because you have to let those things, I forget who said, people sometimes make a story up if they see us not doing something. Just let that bounce off. Yeah, or go over our shoulder.
Most definitely. I saw someone mention Insight Timer. As university employees, you also have access to LinkedIn Learning, and you may not know it, but they have guided meditations within LinkedIn Learning.
Yeah.
I had them send a list of them to me. You'll see them rotated on our website, but those things are available for you, and they're not long. When I was reviewing one, I actually fell asleep. It was just that good. And so just be mindful. And if you can't think, you're like, right now, I don't know where to change, or I don't know where to start with a simple thing of just simply putting yourself on your to-do list at least once. And then ask your team, hey, have you put yourself on the to-do list? You don't need to ask anything else. Just one time. That's a simple way to start for yourself.
Excellent. This is a community that can be a support for each other as well. And I know many of you are, but we want to be able to make those connections. And because everyone here deals with so many things every day and so many parts of this institution. So the better we all are individually, the better we all are collectively. And as Joe said, I think you put in chat already as well, if people are interested in having life and work connections come to their area, either virtually or in person, to reach out. That is on their website. And I misstated the day for the recognition at student unions. It's actually next Tuesday, the 25th. So if you have anyone who's on that list being recognized, hopefully they'll let you know, but take a look in Loke Pasa as well. So, and our next meeting is May 18th. Again, 1:30 to 2:30. So thanks, everyone. Thank you again, Laqwanda.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.